My name's Andrew. I was paranoid, pushed away everyone that I loved. I found drugs, particularly the drug ice. And seeing my son on the bed, innocent, beautiful boy. And then in that moment, I was so disgusted, I said, never again. I'm a proud husband of a beautiful wife, and I've got two beautiful children. And I was born in the country town of Narrabri. I was born of a beautiful Filipino-Chinese mother, and I was born with a Greek father, but my biological father is actually Korean. My mum had landed with me knitted in her womb in Sydney, Australia, and particularly in Narrabri, where I was born in 1983. And I do have recall memories of me as in my childhood holding on to a teddy bear and just looking, just being behind the door of my room and hearing my mum and my dad arguing a lot. My Greek father was actually working for an RSL club, and he would go and revive RSL clubs around New South Wales that weren't doing well. And anyway, we were in Narrabri for a short period, and then we moved to a place called Bundeena, which is south of Sydney. That's when my mum and my father's marriage was starting to decay. I do recall that they did separate, being raised by my grandparents for a good block. I would be with my father on the weekends, on certain weekends, out in Chester Hill, where he remarried. In the process of being with my father on every fortnight on the weekends, and then being with my mum and my grandparents in Coogee during the week, my dad took me to some tennis camp, not expecting anything, but the exercise was that I had to throw tennis balls into little buckets. And then I started the journey in tennis from a young age. My dad was encouraging me along the way, this path. The spiritual life of my mum, she was a Filipino Catholic. My grandma was very strict Catholic as well. On my father's side, he was Greek Orthodox, so I had a bit of a taste of that religious life as well, but it wasn't really consistent. At the age of 12, everything changed. My mum was getting remarried in Darwin, and she wanted me to be there to be the ring bearer for her new marriage in Darwin. The context is I was training very hard to get into potentially Wimbledon juniors at the time. So we had this pathway, and my dad reluctantly sent me over and just said, look, you can have him for a week, and then you can send him back, Andrew back, so he can continue his training. But that didn't happen. So I ended up going there for a week, and the wedding of my mum and my stepfather happened. But they put the offer to take me in. They wanted me to live with them instead. My mum wanted me. And that was very difficult for a 12-year-old to process. And the usual way I processed things was just silence. I didn't say anything. And I just stayed in Darwin, and they dealt with the court battle that ensued for a year or so. It was a long battle behind the scenes. After a year or so of this custody battle, toing and froing between my Greek father and my mum and her new partner, her new husband, there was a turning point when my stepfather, in a way, coerced me to say some things over the phone to my Greek father that wasn't completely true. It was scripted, so that they could end the custody battle. And again, I would just submitted to that, and I followed the instructions at the detriment of my own self-worth, and that basically I broke the heart of my Greek father, and didn't see him again for many years after that. And they ended up staying with mum, And there was no discipline. There was no need to do tennis training anymore. I could just be a kid again, which was, I look back on it, that's a good thing, because before I was just always training tennis every day, every evening, hours and hours a day, and it was just nice to be a kid again. And so that the tennis pathway ended there, like the serious tennis pathway ended. And then I ended up living with my mum in Darwin, and a beautiful brother was born. I got from a half brother, but he's my brother. But they eventually they split up, and then we ended up back in Sydney, in Sydney again. And I was living with mum, so she was a single mum, and I still had the support of my grandparents. And we started to rebuild our lives in Coogee Beach, where I began my schooling there in primary school, late in primary school, and then did my high school in Marist College there. In Marist, I did learn about the faith, and we did daily prayers. I was still a good student, not great academically, but good. In that time, my mum had found another man, and he became like my stepfather. Again, through that union as well, a beautiful gift of another brother came into our lives, which was wonderful. But my relationship with my stepfather was toxic, and I was growing up, and as an adolescent, then I'm going through all the motions of a growing boy. So I did rebel. I wasn't the best stepson, but it came to a head when one time we were at home. We lived in Oatley at the time. We were at home, and then I was helping my stepfather move, moving some logs from a tree, and then I'd accidentally dropped, the log, and I think there was a lot of issues building up to that point. He came at me, and then came up to me, and then I basically reacted and pushed him, and then we had a little tussle. It wasn't like extreme, but it was enough to emotionally and mentally say, I'm not having this anymore. I'm gonna leave the house. So I left home. And during that time, in year 11 and 12, I'd found some friends that I felt belonged to, and they were part of the organized gang. They were recruiting people, and I was open. And I realized now what it was is my need for belonging and acceptance, and I felt like I didn't really belong fully at home. I found acceptance in this gang. So I joined this gang, and so I got into more organized crime activity, and that was this part of my life not very proud of at all. So I took a deep dive in, and then I found alcohol, I found drugs, particularly the drug ice, where I had the courage to do anything I wanted and to speak to anyone I wanted, and all of a sudden the shy little Andrew was very courageous. But it was obviously, looking back, it's a false sense of courage, and it's temporary, and the after effects of it were terrible. So now looking back, I know that it was a portal. Every time I took this drug, it opened up my soul and my heart. That was the journey that I'd taken from the age of 18 to when I hit rock bottom at around the age of 26. I hit rock bottom then. I'd actually broken my leg, and I had an operation where I've got still do have a metal rod down my leg, just down in my ankle, with some screws in it. And anyway, but now I look back at it now as a gift from God, because I wasn't able to walk for about a month or so. And I was on endone and drugs to numb the pain, but also I was still addicted to the illicit drugs, and I'd pushed away all the people I'd loved at that point. I was paranoid, pushed away everyone that I loved. This is the turning point for me spiritually. At that time, I was in my apartment, and then I looked out onto the balcony, and to the right, manifested or saw this like black smoke in the corner of the room, and it didn't have an audible voice, but I felt it calling me to go to the balcony to end the suffering. So I was just like, thinking, so it felt like it just come and just end the suffering. You don't believe in anything, just end it. Why not? Because suffering physically, emotionally, just end it. And so I thought that was reasonable at the time. And then I got up and I started hopping over to the balcony, opened up the balcony door and had a look over to the edge, and it was a beautiful blue sunny day. And then I had a look over and I noticed there was an awning there or something to basically break my fall if I was to jump. I was actually laughing about it because I thought, if I just jump off, it's just gonna hurt my other leg. But then that laughter turned into tears. I started to cry. And then I prayed my first honest prayer ever. And I looked up to the blue sky and I screamed out actually. I said, "Are you there? Are you there?" No angels came down, nothing spectacular happened. It was just, but I turned around, I went back to my bed, and then I just laid down, and I think I slept for like 3 days or something like this. But I woke up with something was different. Now I started to ask a new question, a question that I hadn't taken seriously before, which is there more to life than this? Like, what is the meaning of all of this? And so God had planted I believe God had planted the seed in my heart from that prayer, that honest prayer. After having that experience and this new question that was planted in my heart, I went on a journey to discover what the meaning of life is. And on the way, I did find Jesus Christ on the journey. And to be honest, I used to think that Jesus Christ was like Santa Claus, like he was just share with your kids to keep them from doing anything wrong. But then I discovered that he was actually a man in history. He's recognized by Jewish historians, Muslims, and secular historians. And I thought, oh well, this man lived 2,000 years ago, and 2,000 miles away, but he's so influential still. The biggest turning point for me actually focuses on a CD, and this CD was from a lay Catholic speaker. And this CD was actually given to me by my faithful auntie, and it was titled "To Become the Best Version of Yourself." And I was very attracted to becoming a better version of myself because I was still struggling with addiction and all these other things. That CD blew me away because he was a Catholic speaker, but he spoke about the Catholic Church specifically with so much joy and passion and love for it like I've never heard before. And so I embarked on the journey in reading this author's books, and it led me to understand more deeply what the Catholic Church truly is. Sacramentally, we used to live across the road from a little chapel of retired priests in Sydney, and my grandma, her way of evangelization was to force me to walk her across the road to the chapel and drop her off because she could barely walk. And of course I'm like, all right, I'll take you over. So this was for daily mass. So she would take me over, and then she would say, oh, why don't you come in and just sit down? You don't have to do anything. And then so I said, all right, okay. I was resistant, but then eventually I said yes. So I just came in with her, and she did her Filipino prayers to Our Lady, the icon of Our Lady Perpetual Help, to the left of the altar. And there was I think I took her there maybe 4 or 5 times, but on the 5th or 6th time, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna pray to Our Lady, because my grandma would always pray and light a candle. And so there was something captivating about Our Lady Perpetual Help, the icon. And I started to pray from my heart, and I think the door of my heart was open enough, and I started to cry. I started to cry to Our Lady and say, look, I don't know, I've been a sinner, and further opened up the door of my heart to the intercession of Our Lady, and I learned more about who Jesus Christ was in the process of that. And then I started to attend Mass, daily Mass with my grandma, and that's when I really fell in love with the Mass. Going on Sundays was good, but then going to daily Mass was where I really fell in love with the liturgy of the Mass. And I went to confession for the first time, and probably felt like 5 minutes for me, but it probably went for an hour for the priest. But he patiently heard my first honest confession, and then I felt like the whole world was lifted off my shoulders, and I felt the loving mercy of Jesus for the first time in a real way. And I was just on my knees in the park after, just crying for what felt like an hour or so. And so that's when I felt that impact of Christ's mercy in my heart. While all of this was happening, when I was to answer the question of what is the meaning of life and is there more to life than this, I'd been dating my girlfriend at the time, but now my wife. Along the journey, after realizing that the Catholic Church is the one true church, and that it has the best blueprint or roadmap to a treasure, which is God Himself, I basically realized that I needed to get married to my girlfriend at the time. And that was a little crazy because she was from a Christian denomination, but we were united in Jesus. And the long story short is that she eventually was she was confirmed in the Catholic faith, and we were married in a Catholic church. There was some tough moments together as a married couple, but the beautiful gift that came from that, the fruit, was our first son. And when he was born, a lot of things changed for the better, but it was still tough because I was still struggling a little with my own inner demons. Before, I didn't go to rehab or do therapy or anything. My therapy was confession. So I would go to confession almost every 3 days because I would still fall and fail. But then I'd actually go to confession at St. Mary's Cathedral because I didn't want anyone to see me. I thought I wanted that privacy, but there was a beautiful confessor there. He was just like, God loves you. Don't ever forget that. And that was and that for me was the process of being free from my addiction, or free from my sin. There was a moment when my son was about 3 or 4 months old, and I hadn't taken any drugs for a very long time. And then one of my friends called me out to a birthday party, and I didn't end up coming home for 3 days. And then I felt really, really guilty, terrible inside. And then I remember coming home and seeing my son on the bed, innocent, beautiful boy. And then I'd gone up to him to say hello, and he didn't even notice me. It's like he looked right through me. And then in that moment, I was so disgusted. I said, never again. I'm gonna never do drugs like this ever again. And I'm gonna go all out with following the path free from sin. My wife, we started to build stronger habits of going we went to Mass every weekend. And she was still not at the level where I was at with regards to spiritual development, but she was very patient with me along the way. And now, by the grace of God, she's got a community of other mums, and they're feeding each other in a beautiful spiritual way. And now she's got her own personal encounter with Christ and her journey. So that's the beautiful story there. So along the journey there, I picked up a career in the coffee industry, where I've been working in for 11 years now. I'm very grateful for. But along the journey, we've been consistently going to Mass, but I've been more of like a lukewarm Catholic in a sense, not courageous enough to kind of engage in getting out of the comfort zone, until there's some wonderful handful of men that encouraged me to get comfortable with the uncomfortable and to step out of the comfort zone. And particularly in my parish, I've been very blessed to have these men that have drawn me out of myself and into the ministries that we're working on today. And I guess the initial step out of the comfort zone was to be the senior server or acolyte during the masses at my parish. And then from there, that planted the seed for meeting more people in the parish. And then particularly we have a prayer group, which I was a participant in. And from there, that stemmed off to this men's choir that we've got, have 30 wonderful men who gather together under great leadership to sing and praises to God in our parish. And now that's even extended to opportunities to sing for Christmas carols at the St. Mary's Cathedral in Sydney. From that, we've started a group called Brothers in Christ, and where we get together, and where I believe that fitness is a big part of having not just spiritual fitness and mental fitness, but also physical fitness. And I think we gather every Sunday, or most Sundays, to ride our bikes together at the park before Mass. We gather on Thursdays to play tennis together as a community of faithful men and to enjoy each other's company and fellowship. So these little ministries infusing a holistic approach to holiness, which that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, has been really great and fruitful. I'm very passionate about fitness and about helping other brothers and sisters to create better habits for their life, so that they can have more energy to serve in their families, in their marriages, in their community, in their church community. In the end, I've discovered, and I know, that Jesus is my Savior, that He's my Lord, and it's not good enough just to hold on. Now it's time I feel like I'm being called to share Jesus with others. I feel like God calls us to do things that are uncomfortable. And that's where we grow the most, and that's where God's grace can flourish.